Got it. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Kathy Gresham, otherwise known as KP Gresham. I'm the president for our local Sisters in Crime chapter, Heart of Texas. Some very exciting things are happening. Before we get started here with the panel, a few announcements. They are going to do the Texas Book Festival in person. It's the weekend of Halloween, and we got our table. So I know, I'm so excited. So we are definitely going to have a Sisters in Crime booth at the Texas Book Festival this year. And we will be very happy to sell all of our members' books. Remember, that's one thing you need to be a member of our chapter in order for us to sell your books. But Kelly Manfredini is going to talk a little bit about more that in a bit. So that is a tremendously important thing. Our happy hour, marketing happy hour is just really taking off. We had 11 people present last time. So please remember, we've got those marketing happy hours happening the first Thursday of each month at 4 o'clock. BYOB, of whatever you choose. In August, that will be Thursday, August the 5th. So see you then at 4 o'clock. I don't have any other general membership kind of announcements, except I can say that your national Sisters in Crime are really doing a lot for us. For example, right now, even though we don't have to use this with Maureen and the wonderful West Bank Library people, actually it's the wonderful Maureen and the West Bank Library people, we now have an account, a Zoom account that is paid for by National. So if we ever wanted to do something like a book club or something like that, we have the opportunity and the means to do that without just being in the good graces of the West Bank Library, although they have been wonderful. So that's the end of that. And I'll turn it over to Kelly Manfredini. Do we have Ms. Tolson on? Okay, Maureen's nodding her head that we do. So in that case, Maureen, asked your ever so important question.
I just want to make sure that it's okay that we record this panel discussion today. Is that all right?
And it will be put up on YouTube, right?
We put up on the library's YouTube page for others to see. Is that all right?
Yep.
Good with me.
Yep.
I need each one of the panelists to say yes.
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 Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we heard you, darling.
I'm Susan.
Okay.
I don't see me though. We're working on it.
Do me a favor. Oh, shucks. I just zoomed out. Anyway, go on.
All right. So first things first, if any of my people run in and say something random, I am proactively apologizing. I have little people, so they may pop in and say hi. So I normally am on mute. First things first, you probably have already heard that we have switched to MailerLite for all of our communications. We're slowly rolling out that, so you'll still receive the stuff from Fran from her email up until September, and then you guys are cut off. So if you would like to continue to hear about events like the Texas Book Festival, when we're having our meetings and where speakers are, you need to sign up for our MailerLite, which all it is it's a easier way for us to email everybody in a nicer way. And it's a better way for us to manage our membership. So if you look into the chat, which is the little button on the bottom, I have put the link to subscribe. And this is for non-members. If you are a member and you would like to be on our member list, which then you get all the fun information about all the perks, which we were talking about, like selling your books at the Texas Book Festival, getting our newsletter, all of those things, you need to privately either email me or Fran, and we will add you to the member one, if that makes sense.
And for the record, Fran is our secretary. So that's why I wanted to make sure you knew why.
Yes. So that's for MailerLite. And also, if you would like to sell your books at the book festival and do other fun things, you need to be a member, and it only costs $25. So pay up. You get to do fun stuff.
Okay, excuse, can
We
I
can afford
interrupt
a
here
booth
for a
then.
moment? There are just a couple of little details that have to be clarified. First of all, with the Texas Book Festival, we've run into this in the past. Even if people aren't a member of our chapter, but are members of the national, they are entitled to have their books sold at our
Yes.
table. We ran into this the last time. Okay, so just to be clear,
I'm not aware of that.
okay. Kathy, you look like you're not remembering.
Okay, moving on. We got to get to the panel.
Fine.
Okay, so that's just a little business. Check out the chat and log in and do all those things when you have a moment. Just another way to reach out to you guys about that. So we have a panel this week about publishing in the times of COVID. I know everyone's super tired of hearing how historic and crazy the last year and a half have been. So I'll keep that part short, but I don't know. I did not write my King Lear. I did not have my plague novel. That did not happen. But some of us here did write and did publish this year. And so we want to talk to them about their experience, some who have been publishing for a while and one who's brand new, and their experience of publishing in a pandemic and historic winter storms and all the other crazy stuff that's been happening. So we have Dave Chambrone, Helen Curry Foster, Patrick Kelly, and Susan Tolson. And they're going to talk to you today about their books. And let's start with Dave. Dave, do you want to start with telling us the title of your book that's just being published, a short description of the novel, and if you're self-published or trade for people that don't know?
Okay. My last book came out the end of last year, 2020. It is called, what was it called? Mysterious Threads, that's it. Mysterious Threads. Most of the last 6 books I published are what I call quilt mysteries. My lead character is a quilter, so I found out the hard way that, well, the hard way, I wrote one. My publisher informed me that I'm now writing quilt mysteries because quilters like them and sold them, they sell them. But this one takes place in Williamson County at a ranch, a historic ranch, where they're having a retreat, quilt retreat, sewing retreat. And my 2 lead characters, Virginia and her friend, go there. And while the owner is showing them around the ranch, and it's supposed to be historic and haunted and all that, Virginia, of course, turns up, finds the skeleton, a real one. And when the rest of the finds bones, so in the real one. So she starts to investigate. And then the owner of the ranch is murdered. And guess who finds the body? She does. So she's investigating along with a few other people and gets into more trouble than you can imagine. But so for about 200 and some pages, she's going from one disaster to another, trying to stay out of trouble, staying alive, and finding the bad guys. And it's a lot of fun. She finally figures out that she's pretty good at piecing blocks together to create patterns. But now she wishes she stuck to her basting and batting. But that's coming up. That came out last year. The one that I'm working on now for this year is going to be published this year. I'm not working on it. Sorry, it's up to the publisher. Virginia buys, or at an auction, she gets an old ship's journal and a quilt from the 1700s. And it's from a French ship that was bringing gold to the American Revolution. And it got attacked by the British. They only can deliver half of it. The ship gets wounded, it gets away, it gets destroyed in a hurricane in the Gulf. So Virginia goes to find this stuff with people. She gets crossways with a pirate in the Caribbean, in the Gulf of Mexico, rather, and a drug lord in Mexico. But there's somebody financing this thing. It's in the United States, it's in Hollywood. And then she's trying to find the rest of the treasure. And the guy is after him. So that's kind of what happens.
That sounds cool.
In winter in New England.
Okay. Helen, do you want to give a little snippet of your book?
Yeah, there it is. Ghost Daughter.
Nice.
It's it's number 7 in the Alice McDonald Greer series. She's a small town Texas lawyer, does wills and estates. And one otherwise peaceful Sunday morning, her anxious client, Ellie, who's a 73-year-old vibrant woman, calls and says, "I've got to change my will. I must see you immediately at your office. I've got new information." And Alice is like, "Oh God." Alice had already agreed to be executor of her estate because Ellie, her client, fears fighting between her 2 grown sons. And so Ellie comes in and says, "When I was 17, I gave up a baby for adoption. And I promised my mother I'd break off all contact with the birth father. Now they're both back in her life, thanks to the miracle of 23andMe, which has happened to a lot of people in the country." So Alice is thinking, "Oh God, do we need to change this will?" Ellie says, "But I think there's more because I found this art in the attic in my home in Santa Fe." She has a second home. Well, Alice makes an appointment. Ellie doesn't show. Alice goes out to the ranch and finds Ellie dead with a horse galloping around the house inside. And well, that's where it starts. It turns out
Awesome.
that's how it starts. So Alice has to figure out, she wants to know who killed Ellie and why. The cleaning woman had overheard a conversation between Ellie and one of her sons saying, "Well, am I the last one to find this out? Mom, why don't you do this? Why don't you sell Wildflower Central? Da 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 da." And he's very hostile. So there's a lot of worry about those boys and the fighting that's going to go on. But then Alice realizes, as executor, she's got to protect the assets. So she heads for Santa Fe to try to find the art. And then we have road races and so forth.
Very cool. That sounds exciting. And you self-published?
I did, and this is the 3rd that I've self-published. I created an LLC, Stewart's Creek Press, and that's how I did it.
Okay. Patrick?
Yeah. So my book is The Mountain View Murder, and it's set in a beautiful mountain resort of Wintergreen, Virginia. And some of you may remember when we did readings for the holidays party that I read the first chapter. And so what happens in the first chapter is that Lou Thorpe, who's an older gentleman, goes out. It's the middle of the night. A cold front has come through Wintergreen, and he has insomnia, so he gets up very early and goes out for a morning walk. And a driver knocks him off the road and he's killed, and the driver drives away. So he's killed by a hit and run accident. And it's a small community. They have a small community police department, which is short-staffed for various reasons. And so they call upon Bill O'Shea, who is a retired police detective, to assist in the investigation. And so the question is whether Bill still has what it takes to solve a murder mystery. And soon he's drawn into the old process of interviewing suspects, checking alibis. There's lots of suspects. Everybody has a secret to hide. And it's a traditional murder mystery. And I have self-published it, as I have all my books.
Okay. Thank you. Susan,
Yes,
tell us a little bit about your book, the
I
title,
will.
and a
I'm
little
the
blurb.
one who has never published before.
Yeah.
This is my very first book. It's Designed for Murder, an Alice Ann Abbott mystery, which implies that I'm going to write more, but boy, this is hard work. It's the story of a woman in her 70s who is facing an uncertain retirement. She's running out of money. She doesn't have a family to take care of her. She gets sick. She's working for a woman who is incredibly wealthy with one home in Rob Roy. The whole thing takes place here in Austin. and her employer is murdered one evening, and Alice Ann, the protagonist, learns that her best friend Hayden has been arrested for the crime. Alice Ann doesn't have a lot of self-confidence, so she tries to talk to the police and also to her friend's lawyer, but no one will listen to her because, well, for a variety of reasons. But anyway, she winds up assembling her own posse of sort of a weird mix of people, and they solve the murder. They find out who did it, and the police come in at the end, and there are no apologies, but I guess they're implied.
That's awesome. So this is your first one.
It is.
Patrick, how many have you published?
This is my 9th novel. I have 4 in a series that's based in Austin. There are thrillers featuring Joe Robbins, a character named Joe Robbins, and I have 4 standalone novels. And this one is the first in a new series, the Wintergreen Mystery Series.
Okay. And Helen, how many? Which
Ghost
one is
Daughters,
this, Mark?
It's the 7th in the series, and that's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Well, I
And
admire all of you. As I said, I didn't realize it was this much work.
It gets easier.
Oh,
it does a
Sure,
lot
addicting.
thank you
easier.
for the encouragement. I'll try that.
Dave, I mean, how many have you? What marks this one for you?
24. I've got 19 or something. I got, well, with the one that just came out, 18 books, 18 nonfiction, 18 fiction, 4 nonfiction, and 2 textbooks. And I also wrote 2 newspaper columns.
Okay. So how did you consider putting the story together during the pandemic? So how did you consider writing about it, putting it into your stories? Do you think you will in the future? Start with Patrick. Do you think you'll ever put the
Yes.
pandemic into your books?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I did not. It does not factor into this story at all. And I think I would in the future, but only if it contributed a lot to the story in some way. And I was thinking about this. I think it's an excellent question. I was thinking about it. I recently read a murder mystery called The Air Raid Killers by Frank Goldhammer, who's a German, and it takes place in Dresden at the end of the World War II, and the character is a police detective, and he's trying to solve a murder mystery in the midst of the end of the Second World War. The Germans at the beginning, the Germans are controlled, and they go through the firebombing of Dresden, and then towards the end, the Russians have taken over the city, and all the time he's trying to figure out how to solve this murder. So it really adds a lot to the backdrop, and it really makes the story fascinating. And so if there was a way I could do that, and I'm not sure, as bad as this pandemic was, I think it's people say it could have been a lot worse. And so if I was to do that, I would fabricate a pandemic that was 10 times as worse, so that the whole world was really upside down, and the characters trying to solve a mystery inside of this upside down world.
Okay. What about you, Helen? Do you think you'll ever include the pandemic, or did it drive some of the emotions for your characters, or some of the themes?
It didn't, but I thought your question was terrific, Kelly, because I'm worried about the same thing. I thought, we're in the middle of it. Should I reflect it? But the books, I went back and looked, the books have come out like once a year, but they're really in a much more compressed time frame, like 3 months apart. And so it didn't fit in terms of real novel time. I agree with Patrick, and everybody who was in Dresden. I mean, the firebombing was a horrific, widespread thing, and it would be hard with the pandemic, where our experience had been in some ways all the same, and in some ways so different. Like how many of us have been in an ICU with people on a vent? I have not, but so many have. So yeah, great question.
What about you, Dave? Do you think your quilters will ever encounter a pandemic?
maybe a pandemic, but not that one. I mean, I find that some things date a novel. Like you talk about the pandemic, that's a certain time frame. So I've steered clear of trying to do things that would necessarily pigeonhole it.
Mhm.
So I tend to keep, unless there's something really wild, some of those things I just dream up and blow up. But no, I doubt it, unless it was something like I said, unless I created one, like Patrick said, you know, that was big enough to be important. But no, I haven't, because I don't want to pigeonhole the time frame for the books.
Yeah, Kathy just put in the comments that the same thing came up about 9/11. I actually did end up writing a 9/11 novel, but I did it like 20 years later. So I think there's something to having it be some time in between. But it does make for an interesting B story to your A story when you have those kind of things. So I was curious because I personally had thought about it too, and I was curious what you guys thought. And
I'm-
Susan, I know you're not sure if you're going to write a second, but if you did, what do you think? Do you have thoughts about it?
I'm an inveterate traveler, so the pandemic really, really impinged on my lifestyle. I discovered that for me, the pandemic, I was traveling internally. And so discovering more about myself as I sat here day after day, not able to go anywhere, walking in the morning, coming back and reading all day. It provided a lot of time for me to finish my novel, and I'm so glad that happened. But no, I think there just wasn't enough going on for me to in the world, character interaction. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if isolation theme, though,
Mhm.
inadvertently becomes popular
Yes.
now, just because we all have that feelings of isolation
Yes.
this last year that I wonder if that's going to drive some of the things. Kathy, I'm sorry, I cut you off earlier. Did you have something you wanted to say? You're muted.
I'm not on this panel, so I need to shut up. But I think it would work if you did something like you based your story on a character whose backstory includes a pandemic situation that maybe gave them the motivation to do something. But unless it's something like all of a sudden there's cell phones in the middle of your non-digital world, you kind of can probably get away from it.
Okay, for those of you who have published frequently, did your writing or editing process change during the pandemic? Is there something that you did differently because you were home more, or because just where your headspace was? And we'll start with you, Pat.
Yeah, so for me, the answer is somewhat situational, because when the pandemic began, I was working. I was doing a consulting project to make money, which my writing is joyful, but it doesn't make me a lot of money. So I was actually working, and it was an all-consuming gig. So at the beginning of the pandemic, in fact, for the first 8 months, really, I was just buried in work, and I did very little writing. And then when my gig ended, the whole process of the pandemic made me think a lot about what I was doing, and actually have since decided to retire. And so I would say that the pandemic, had a significant impact on sort of, how I was looking at what I was doing with my time. And part of it was really just underscoring, that life is precious, and you get to a certain point in your career where you're trying to figure out exactly why you're continuing to work, and that really underscored the importance of focusing on, if there's something I wanted to get on with, now is the time to do it. And so after the gig was over, I didn't look for another one, and I turned down a couple others actually, and I focused on writing. And I just kind of jumped into it. and like never before. And it took about 3 months really from starting on this book to having it for it to be ready for my editor. So it was it really sharpened my focus quite a bit. And then I would say also that the fact that the pandemic closed down things so much. I mean, I really got into the writing about last October, so things were still very much shut down. And then once we got into the surge of the winter, it got even more, it's just stayed that way. And so there's not a whole lot to do, you can spend more time writing. And so I became more productive from that perspective.
That's awesome. What about you, Helen? Did it change your process in any way? Your editing, your writing?
I think it got more intense. Ghost Cat came out in June a year ago, and I did go ahead. I mean, I wanted to put it on Audible, and so a big issue was finding a safe recording studio. Managed that, got that done, but I haven't gone back and recorded Ghost Daughters, partly because of the, who's been in this studio where I'm breathing into this fuzzy microphone in this little closed room. I'm waiting on that. I felt much more intense, and I don't know if the rest of the critique group felt more intense, but it seemed to me that there was this sense of driving to get things done, and we did. In terms of the process, same guy did the cover and did the paperback format, and then I used a new person for the Kindle conversion. And the copy editing, there was an awful lot more time to sit there and look for mistakes this time. I just did much more intense proofing. And one other thing, I'm really tapering off at work, which is Downtown Austin Law Firm. Well, when you're not having to, I really cut back. And if you're not having to drive for 2 hours a day, you can say to yourself, sit down in that chair again. So that was a good thing, really.
That's awesome. So Sue, I know this is your first one. So can you tell me about your experience with how, like you said, you were home because you couldn't travel. How did all of that impact your writing, finding editors, things like that?
Well, it made it much easier, as almost everybody else has said. There wasn't much to do but read and write. And so I finished it. I've been working on it for years. And in that way, the pandemic served me very well. I did get it finished and published, and hallelujah.
Dave, did your writing process, editing, anything change? Did things slow down with publishers or?
My critique group, we did everything online, which was unique and different. Hadn't done that. There was more time to do research, which can be good and bad, because you can get tangled up in that and spend most of your time, oh, that's interesting, and go off on all sorts of sidetracks. And I learned a lot of things that I'll probably never need to know. But I spent more time probably writing and nitpicking and changing and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, couldn't go do a lot of other things. But my publisher was just happy. She said when I needed to get the book to her, and I did it. So that was pretty much the same. So stuff is done online now. You ship everything electronically, so that was easy. Trying to meet people and talk to people for information, going out and actually, that got a little interesting because nobody wanted to talk person to person. You can do it online on the phone, but that was really about it.
Okay. So I've been reading lots of articles recently about how the pandemic kind of made it so people didn't have the attention span to read as much. I know personally, I didn't read as much this last year, just from work and children being home, that I didn't read as much and didn't buy as many books. I was wondering, for those of you who have published a few books, how has your book sales been impacted from the pandemic? Start with Pat.
So I think for me, I did not see an impact that I could attribute to the pandemic. Now that's probably because, I mean, I think that's because I'm selling so few books, you know, I mean, I sell books, but the biggest driver to my sales are the marketing efforts that I do, you know, so if I do a specific promotion, that will drive sales. And those, I look for those, you know, cause and effects, and I see them, but I can't attribute other things like, you know, to like the pandemic and say, okay, I didn't sell, you know, any books in the last week or whatever, and say that's because of the pandemic. So I didn't see an impact from that perspective. And I think I would have to be a lot bigger, I think, really, to be able to try to pin down that impact, that cause and effect.
Mhm. And Kate
Yeah.
just put in the comments, I saw that she had her best month during the beginning of the pandemic shutdown.
Wow, there you go.
So what about you, Helen? Do you feel like there's any differences in like, are paperbacks selling better than audio, or Kindle still the better?
I think Kindle is, I thought there was some slowdown, but then we have started this marketing happy hour, and that's been hugely successful because I've been, excuse me, I had to change bedrooms. This is there were kids coming up the porch. I've been so ignorant about Amazon ads, Facebook ads, promotions, etc. And that group has been very helpful. I commend it to everybody who wants to put a book out there. And so I've seen some pickup, which is encouraging, and I'm going to keep trying to do that. And Book People is back up, and so I take my books down there, and that's encouraging. So I feel like maybe we've turned a corner, but I too, you know, my addiction was the spelling bee, the New York Times spelling bee game every morning. If I didn't do that, I mean, I was so distractible. Such a short attention span.
What about you, Dave?
I went down a little bit, but not as much as I thought. Part of the problem was normally when I'm out of talking at quilt guilds, because these ladies like to buy quilt things related to quilts. So that was good. That's been down a little bit, but I've sold a lot more through Amazon on the ebooks and also the paperback. But and so I took out ads in some of the quilt guilds newsletters. And now they're starting to have shows again. I'm going to one this weekend. We have a booth there in Temple. And I've taken out ads in some of the programs. And when I do that, of course, if I'm there, sales go up. But if I'm not there, at least the ad is there for people to see and go check out online and buy books. So I've been trying to do it, you know, so if I'm not there, I've got me there in the form of an ad or something like that. But the marketing, you know, the ads help, and the ads aren't that expensive, not with those groups anyway.
So speaking of marketing and ads, since we're going down that way, you've shared that you've found some creative ways to market your books. And Helen, you said that you're starting to do some Facebook and Amazon ads.
Yeah.
And then Pat, are you changing your marketing strategy? You mentioned it a little bit. What are some of the things that you've been doing to kind of market your books during this time?
Yeah, so one, I've changed a lot. I mean, I guess because I guess the biggest thing for me is I feel like I've been doing this, you know, pursuing this writing addiction for a decade, and I feel like I really have focused a lot of energy on the writing side and not nearly enough energy and time on the marketing side. And so I've flipped that around. Really, I'm spending a lot more time, at least now, and I think it'll probably balance out a little bit differently at some point. But now I'm spending a lot more time on trying to understand the marketing side than writing at the moment. And there's just so much to learn. One specific thing that I would just talk about for a minute is, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware, a lot of folks are aware of this. I purchased this software, Vellum software, and that it affects sort of how you do the formatting of your books, both ebooks and print books. And the reason I mention that is I found it to be incredibly helpful. It's not cheap. It's $250 to get the ebook and the print capability from formatting. But what it's enabled me to do is to play around with the back material in my novels. And also I've changed from a marketing perspective. I've changed, particularly on the ebooks, all the front matter. There's basically, I've taken all the front matter out, except for so that when people do on Amazon, open up the look inside, the first thing they see, it pops up on chapter 1, and so there's no clutter there for them to get right into the story. And then at the end, I've, restructured the back matter so that it goes right from sort of the last sentence into the pitch for the next book in the series, with including bylinks, so that they, hopefully if you get somebody to read right through to the end of your book, then you can go right in and they're interested in the next book. And so if you give them the hook and they're already interested in the characters and so forth, then they'll go on and buy the second book. And so I played around with the back matter a lot. Vellum has enabled me to do that. I mean, in my old world where I had an ebook formatter, I always had to go back and forth. And so as a result, there was so much time involved and some money too, but it was just such a pain that I didn't do it. And so now it's so easy that I find myself tweaking the back matter, so I'll look at it after a month and I'll look at it again. I'll say, well, I really should, push this as well as that, and I'll tweak it around and I can change it within an hour. And so that has, I think so that's a pretty significant change, and the tool has enabled me to do that and make it much more quick and efficient to make changes to the back matter. And then the other thing I'd say is that for me, because I'm spending so much time on the marketing side as opposed to the writing side, there's just a wealth of material out there. And we were on a call a week or so ago, and Kate Beret recommended this book that's actually free, called How to Market a Book by Ricardo. I guess it's I don't know if it's Fayet or Fayed. It's Fayet, but it's really an excellent source. And one of the things that I found in doing all this marketing research, there's a lot of material out there. There's some free courses you can get into, like buying courses. That gets expensive very quickly. So, so I've done a little bit of that, but not a lot of that. But what I've found is that there are a lot of books that cost $5, or in this case, free, that I can learn so much more than what I already know, that it's extremely valuable to spend time on that. And so that's how I've been spending a lot of time. And as an example, you read one book, and if you think it's really good, invariably inside that book, they'll recommend other sources. So as an example, that one book, How to Market a Book, inside there, he recommends a book that he thinks is really good about email marketing, right? And so I can't remember the title of that one, something about ninja and email marketing, but he just swears it's the end, it's a be all and end all about email marketing, which of course is important, if you're an indie and a self publisher. And so that's my next book, and so for me, that's become kind of a big part of my marketing journey, I guess. I hope is on the research side, trying to go back to school, if you will, to try and understand. And Anna Castle's put in the news in the remarks there, Newsletter Ninja by Tammy Lovebreck, I guess. So that'll be the next book that I pick up and try to learn more about the marketing side of the equation.
So Susan, this is all new to you. Can you tell us what your experience has been like for publishing and trying to get sales and marketing and some of the things that you've tried? And are you taking notes?
When I look at my bank account and see royalty payments from Amazon, my heart just skips a beat every time there's a new one. It's $3.42 makes me feel like a professional writer. So it is all very, very new to me. I taught English in high school and college for a number of years. And one of my students, a former student, is trying to get a marketing gig started, and she's helping me a lot. She developed my beautiful website. Her name is Stephanie Crane. She's very smart and about marketing, and did a really good job with the website. It terrifies me. I freeze when I think about trying to go out and sell my book. I've got a book talk coming up. I've done a couple of interviews, radio interviews, and I don't mind talking about the book. I love that, but asking someone to buy it is hard for me. So I'm glad I've got some help there.
Yeah, you need to get over that part.
I know. What can I do?
Asking people
The
to buy your
worst,
book.
the worst place you can start to sell a book is at a bookstore. Like a book signing at a bookstore.
Yeah.
Everything else there is a book.
Well, I published on, I guess, the book's available on Amazon. And I understand that bookstores don't really appreciate having you come in with a book that's been published by Amazon or on Amazon. Is that right? How do you
Really.
get into bookstores?
You're getting in there, yeah.
Susan, call Michael McCarthy at Book
Oh.
People.
Mhm.
He
Okay.
works with the consignment program. He's a delightful, kind person and will be very nice to you.
Thank
Yep,
you.
and
Great
you can
tip.
sell at half price books. You can sell at Bookwoman. I actually do better at Bookwoman. I've been pretty successful doing that, and I've done a few talks there, and every time sell out pretty well.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
on consignment,
Thank
that
you,
both
Helen.
places is a
Thank
good
you,
idea.
Helen.
Yeah. So,
just-
what are the? Sorry, go ahead.
Just for the record, wonderful question, Susan. Please feel free to join that marketing happy hour that we have.
I was going to
on
ask Helen about
Thursdays?
that.
Yeah.
It's a part of Sisters in Crime.
It's a part of our chapter. It's
Okay,
one of the
good.
bennies our chapter has. So,
Good.
yeah, it's just within this group, but our experts really are Kate Beret and Anna Castle. They've really done a lot. And so I invite everyone to do that. I'm going to shut up now.
Good.
No, it's a great plug for the group. And again, that's only for members. So if you are not paid up this year and you would really like to, make money selling your books, just saying, you might want to join the group. I think that the marketing group alone will pay for your membership. So be sure to check the chat and click the link and pay Mr. Dave for $25. So as everyone doing so Susan, I know you're brand new, so you have it on Kindle. Do you have paperback? Are you thinking of doing audio?
I do. I have not thought about doing audio. It's an interesting concept. This is all so very new to me. It interests me. I would like to read my book. I've got my nice Southern accent, and it takes place in Austin, so I think that might add something to the color of the book. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Pat? Are you having your new one? Is it an audio, paper, all the things?
Yeah, I haven't made the foray into audio yet, Audible yet. My stuff's all on paperback and ebooks, but not audio yet. And I just feel like I guess I read one article that basically said, audio is great if you're selling some books, and so if you're having some success with your ebooks and your paperbacks, then adding Audible to that, if you're Amazon exclusive, is great. But so I feel like I've got to get over that hurdle first. And if I can get over that hurdle, then absolutely, audiobooks will be next thing I'll tackle. But
Okay.
I don't think it's holding me back. I don't think the fact that I don't have, I'm sure it would generate more sales, but I don't think it would make me be successful. I need to find some success first, and then I can add audio to it.
Okay. What about you, Dave?
Mine are so far in paperback and ebooks. I haven't ventured into the audio yet. That kind of scares me. I'm
And
not
I
the
know
guy who- I'm not the guy you want to read the book.
I've read all the ones that I've done. I've done 4 of them, I think. And it's challenging, but fun. It's expensive to do. And I may never make back what I've spent on it, but I like having it out there. I will say, to my horror, it's looking at a big print version of your paperback. You will see some typos that you missed going through your proofing process. But this, like Pat says, this has been a year of learning stuff that I wish I'd known 6 or 7 years ago. It's taken me a long time to figure out things like I should change my book detail page. You know, just for the first time in ever, I changed it because I felt really good about this. Ghost Cat actually won an award. I never win anything, so this is very exciting. So, and so to go into Author Central and change the book detail on every paperback, and then you have to do it for the Kindle. I'd never done that. So there is so much to know and to do. I'm doing a blog tour for the first time, and trying to start really managing the Amazon bits, the promotions and the free things. I don't know that I'm going to stay exclusive longer than, this fall sometime, but I'm really trying to maximize what's out there. And it has taken a long time and a lot of good help from people like Pat and Anna and Kate to figure out how to do it. It's really complicated. Kelly, you're nodding. I know you know how to do it brilliantly.
No. Thank you for that, but no.
It's hard stuff,
It is. It's very, very hard. And there's always more and more things to learn, and it takes a lot of time.
Right.
So as we're nearing the end, does anyone have anything that they want to share, last parting words before we open up to questions?
I would like to ask a question if I could, as a member of the panel. Do
Yeah.
any of you use the software, the writing software that keeps track of what's going on where, or do you kind of wing it?
Like Scrivener?
Yes.
No, Scrivener, I own it. It does not make sense to me, so I do not use it.
Okay.
I use Word and Google Docs.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay, good.
Same.
Thank you for that.
Same
Mhm.
here.
Okay.
Mhm.
Looks
Yeah,
like the learning curve on those things would just be so steep and painful.
I'm too terrified to accidentally delete stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I like that Google Docs especially saves things as you
Mhm.
go. So
Can I
Right.
actually make a comment about that? I also use Word. I
Mhm.
also found it not intuitive at all. I've also talked to people who find it incredibly intuitive. But what I would like to point you guys to is Matt Herron. He is local to the Austin area, and he's written a book about it. And I would not be shocked if you wanted to have someone come in and talk about Scrivener, if he would be willing to do that. And you can tell him I mentioned his name so he can hate on me later for it if he doesn't want to do it.
yeah,
Um,
I'll ask
Put that
him.
in the chat if you would, please, Kate. Put that
Oh,
in the chat.
he used to be one of my neighbors. I know him. I can message him and ask if he'll do it.
So just to get to the punchline though, Kate, does he recommend that you
He uses
use?
it extensively. He
Oh, yeah.
spent a lot of time learning it, and he knows
Mhm.
he uses probably more of the bells and whistles than a lot of people do, although even he will say there's a lot of stuff he doesn't use. He uses it in the plotting phase. He uses it in the drafting phase. And then I think once he's done drafting and he's in the editing phase, he's in Word, but I don't want to say for sure. But he does use it for multiple for multiple stages of writing, and he is a big advocate. I mean, he has a nonfiction book on how to use Scrivener. He is a very, and it's done well. I mean, it's a good book. It might be a little outdated. I don't know if he's updated it since the last release. Oh yeah, see, Anna's already linked to it. It's Scrivener Superpowers.
That sounds great.
Anyways, he definitely advocates for it. He likes it. He uses it. I know other people who like Plotter better. I know other people who use other tools. Again, I'm just throwing that out there. I personally use Word. I'm like most of y'all.
I use a murder board.
Yeah.
Big white board. put my things on what's going on and stuff. I can always look at things like, that's not going to work, and erase it.
Yeah, I mean, for plotting and stuff like that, I use a project management system called Notion. So I do use other tools, but for the actual writing part, I use Word. Like I keep all of my series Bibles and all of that in Notion, and I have like beat sheets that I keep in Notion too.
So Susan, to answer your question, I think it's whatever works best for you, do that.
Thank you very much to all of you.
Because if you ask a writer, we all do something different.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It makes
it's
it so
for
fun and
most
interesting.
things. It's
Yeah.
just, try things out. And if it works for you, it works for you. It may not work for other people. So you just have to kind of find your process.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
On that
problem.
plotting note, excuse me, it's good to experiment, especially with your first books, because you don't know what works for you until you've screwed around with some stuff, tried some different things, It's good to be exploratory. And the Scrivener is probably too expensive to just play with, but they may have a trial. You could at least look at it if it has any appeal to you at all, or some of these other things. So
I'll
just
look
to
into it. Thank
experiment with different
Yeah.
ways of plotting too.
Yeah, I got mine for 20 because if you win at NaNoWriMo, they give you $20 off. So that's how I ended up getting it. But to me, I tried it. I'm like, I don't have time for that.
I have developed my own word-based systems for everything, my whole ecology. I think it's a lot of what Scrivener does for you. It's like, I've heard people say, Scrivener allows you to have different folders that you can use from book to book. And I'm going, Windows Explorer allows me to have different folders also. And I get to decide exactly what they are and where they are. And so I basically had developed my own ecology before Scrivener came out, and long before it came out for a PC. So it's not worth the learning curve to reinvent my wheel, so to speak, for me. But a lot of people love it. If you're starting new, might be worth looking at.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Anna.
Sure.
Nobody else? Kathy, you may speak if you would like to.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy. That's
Well, Tom had a great question, which is how do you form or get into a critique group? And
I
have-
thought that was a good one.
it's a great.
Thank you. I missed that one.
And I got comments from kind people, sisters, et cetera, on the first few books, but having a critique group where someone in a kind way will say, what does that word mean? And you think, wait, don't I need to work on the word choice? Or didn't you say on the last page that the murderer was wearing a red t-shirt? And, I can't tell you how good. So what do you all think? How do you find a
Well,
critique
Helen,
group?
actually, I really was perked up by his question as well.
Yes.
And I would like to suggest that if anyone in this group is looking for a critique group, either email me or put your name in a chat. Nowadays, it doesn't have to be based on what your location is. It can be based on if you do Zoom. My critique group for the last year has been on Zoom, and right now we still are. So I would love to. One of the nice things about our critique group that we've got is we're all mystery writers. So we know what a mystery reader expects, what a mystery bookseller expects. We know the genre, and if you've really made a suspenseful thing or just a nice little story about a bee hovering around a flower, you know what I'm saying? So if you, oh shush, Anna, I see you laughing. So please let us facilitate that for you. What you might want to do is put together the first 5 pages of your book or the first section of your book, and maybe switch it with each other. If you give us your names, we'll connect you and see what you think of the
I would
critique.
love to find a critique group. I don't know how to do the chat here, but I'll send you an email maybe.
Well, and
That would be fine.
Anna
That would be-
mentioned the Sisters in Crime Guppies has critique groups and swaps. And
They have,
then,
the book swaps are managed by one of the steering committee members. That's a useful resource. Is another group. I guess it's like probably $35 or whatever membership. It's another chapter that anybody can join. It's an entirely online chapter. So, but you know, I mean, face-to-face critique groups have a lot of advantages too. So,
Well, anyway, I mean, what the heck? We can try to facilitate one for you. Guppies, I am a huge fan of Guppies. I'll just let you all know that. I think it's a really excellent online chapter, and it really actually brings a lot that we can bring to our local chapter. It's a symbiotic relationship in some ways.
And
So
then
anyway,
West Bank Library has a writing workshop on Monday evenings
Right.
at 5 p.m.
Mm.
And then the Writers League of Texas is another great way to meet writers and find critique groups. Also, there's a lot just going on Facebook. There's a couple of writing groups for this area that you can. The Indie Author Society is a great way to meet people. I think that's actually how Kate and I met, was through that. So you can meet lots of really cool people just looking on the internet.
Yeah, the San Gabriel Writers League of Georgetown is also starting to put people together for critique groups. Not that you have to be a member of that, but I mean, the critique groups are separate, but they're trying to get names for people to put them together. If you're in the North area, like up here in Williamson County, that's a good, you know, a starting point too. San Gabriel Writers League.
and it does help if you can get a seasoned critique group person there to kind of help, you know, show the ropes. You know, there's got to be some rules that are set up, total respect for each other's writing, agreement to not only send your stuff in, but you will critique the other people's stuff. You know, just basic things like that, but it needs to be set out right off the bat so that what format, you know, do you want everything submitted in double space Times New Roman 12 instead of some flowery script that nobody can read? So, you know, just basic stuff like that is the thought. And I see, okay, I hear Susan would like that and Tom would like that. And so maybe we'll put a little something out in our newsletter and see if we can get some more folks, and that would be really cool.
Thank you to our panelists that spoke today and offered your insight into publishing during a pandemic. And please be sure to, again, scroll all the way to the top of the chat to where I have the links to join the group officially, and make sure you attend the marketing meetings then on Thursdays. And then
Thursday of the month, first Thursday
of the month, and sign up for our mailing lists, because after September you're getting cut off. So get on that.
Susan,
Yes.
Susan, on your screen at the bottom, do you have a list of words?
No,
Like-
I don't.
Okay, tap on the bottom of it with your cursor and see if something comes up.
Well, you know, I just discovered how to do the chat.
Okay, because that I wanted you to be able to access the chat
Thank
because,
you. Yeah, actually, my daughter stepped over and showed me how to do it, so I'm
Okay.
good.
excellent.
Susan, do you want me to email you the links?
Please do if you don't
Okay.
mind.
I don't.
Yeah, that would be great. I can't tell you how honored I feel to be in your presence, all of you.
You did great, kiddo.
Oh, thank you.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I think that is the, Kelly, are you kind of handing it off or ending it up here? Okay, one other quick announcement I forgot to make earlier, but if you are interested in doing the Kindle Vella and you want to get in on that very first batch of episodes, I think they're starting to come out this Thursday. So you might want to do your episodic tale, at least get the first one up now. So you'd be in that first rush of things. Now, what the heck am I talking about? Kindle Vella is something new that Kindle is putting out. It's 5,000 word parts of a story. So it's definitely like the old episodes that, like an episode on TV. No, that's not right. Because episodes on TV don't really have a follow through everything. So it's like the old, if anybody ever listened to Johnny Dollar on the old
It's
radio
the old
show,
serials, like the, yeah,
old
it's the old
serial.
serials.
So but you have kind of a hook at the end of each part, and it can be 3 episodes, it can be 20 episodes. But if you want to try out that way of doing things, you have to have it in pretty quick now. So that's it. Thank you, everybody, for
I
coming.
just asked a question on chat, and it was addressed to Helen. I would like to know the name of that guy, Book People I need to get in touch with.
Mike-
Okay, I'll email you and I'll send
Thank
you
you,
his, I'll
Helen.
send you his email address, okay?
Thank you.
Great. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for coming and joining us. Thank you, Maureen at West Bank Library. You rock.
And
Kelly, I
And
appreciate.
don't forget to come next month. Don't forget to come next month. Lori Ryan, who's a New York Times bestselling author, is going to be telling us everything you need to know about plotting. She wrote an amazing workbook that I love and is a huge part of my process when I was writing before the pandemic. And I highly recommend it. I think she's off a lot of brilliant information about ways that you can plot all parts of your story. So make sure that you come next month. I think it's August 8th. Yes, August 8th. Yes,
Correct.
Maureen's-
Correct.
Okay, cool. So August
Hey, you know
8th,
what?
come here, Lori.
Wouldn't you know that I'd be plugging something that involves wine more than I am our next meeting? Oh, wait. Well, anyway,
My kind of
thank you,
girl.
everyone, for
You
coming.
may drink during the meetings. Just
It's
saying.
iced tea. It's iced
Yeah.
tea. Okay.
Sure.
Long
Kelly,
Island iced tea.
Kelly, our vice president, thank you so much for moderating everything. Thank you to the panel, and just everybody have a good, safe month and stay cool.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.